Welcome to Decarbonizing Today, a deep dive into the Edmonton metro region's role in addressing the global climate crisis. In this episode, we're with Saban, the CEO of Rewaste, and your Edmonton Global host, Alyssa Linford.
Corey, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Could you describe what Rewaste is? Describe your company for me.
Yeah, so Rewaste helps businesses divert their plastics from landfills, and we focus on transforming it into recycled products that they can use in their operations or generate revenues by selling it through their distribution channels.
And what was the inspiration for starting Rewaste?
The inspiration was COVID.
Is that right?
Yeah, so my background's in the construction industry, where I spent about a decade, and I was laid off during COVID, and I was able to spend more time at home with my wife and 3 young kids. And I just began experimenting with single-use grocery bags in the garage, and I thought we can probably do something better than just sending this material to landfill. So I started experimenting with single-use grocery bags and just melting it between a griddle and an iron and creating these dense objects. And from there, we got to do some pilot projects and secure some contracts and move out of the garage.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're here today at Carbon Capture Canada. With the mission of what Carbon Capture Canada presents, how does it align with what Rewaste aims to do and is doing?
Yeah, I think the carbon aspect is new for a lot of businesses. And for us, what we realized is when we process plastic, we actually embody carbon. So rather than thinking about sequestering carbon and removing it from the air, we look at the plastic and how it already has a carbon footprint in it. So by processing it and turning it into recycled products, we focus on the embodied carbon. So we're getting more into producing products that embody carbon and really understanding what that life cycle assessment means.
With Rewaste, I understand that you guys do focus within a couple of different sectors and have a couple of different partnerships. Could you explain a little bit more about what your sectors that you focus in on are, as well as your partnerships?
Yeah, so we service a lot of different sectors. Our first contract was from the cannabis industry. And so now we're the largest cannabis recycler in Canada. We work with multinationals to set up recycling programs. Most recently, we've worked in the construction industry. And specifically in the construction industry, that's where we're taking plastic and creating plastic rock, we call re-rock, to be used as weeping tile and drainage rock in construction. And so when we look at traditional materials used in construction, it's massive amounts of materials that are needed. And the concept that we've developed is replacing some of these traditional materials with plastics. And we've observed up to a 75% weight reduction by making plastic rock.
Interesting. And what are the implications of expanding the amount of reuse of products and materials in the net zero efforts?
So the opportunity that we see, there's 2 big opportunities. One is on the downstream side. So when we look at the production of traditional rock, there's mining application, there's a lot of transportation, so GHG is being produced. So when we look at the plastic rock, it's using existing materials. It's reducing the amount of materials heading to landfills. We're generating value from that waste. And then on the upstream side, when we do incorporate our plastic into products, now we see less GHGs associated with transportation because the material is so much lighter. We're seeing less wear and tear on roads. We're seeing less wear and tear on equipment. So I think we're starting to see more benefits on the downstream and upstream sides.
What aspects of the Edmonton metropolitan region's ecosystem do you find have influenced or aided in your success as a business?
I think being in Edmonton, there's a lot of opportunity, and everybody wants to give a helping hand, it seems. So when you talk to this innovative ecosystem that Edmonton Global is part of, oftentimes it's great for lead generation, it's great for connection and networking. So when we look at the Edmonton region, it's just filled with opportunities.
That makes sense, like the innovation in the ecosystem. I guess my second follow-up question to that would be, are there any other partners that you would love to give a shout out to or that have kind of helped attribute in that success as well?
Yeah, I think all the partners that we have, from recycling partners, the businesses we work with, to even the Edmonton ecosystem, so Startup Edmonton, the ERIN program, to be able to help re-waste from idea to commercialization. So I think there's a lot of factors where you get an idea and it's a lot of work to turn that idea into a business. But being in Edmonton, there's a lot of resources that can help turn that idea into an actual business. And like I said, there's a lot of relationships that we can get connected to through Edmonton Global.
What are some of the roadblocks that you guys are facing right now as an organization, and what may be needed there to help you move forward?
The biggest thing from idea to commercialization is obviously resources and investment. So when we look at scaling our plastic rock into a commercialized product, well, there's big equipment costs. And so that's one of the challenges that we see with a lot of companies trying to get to that operational point in business. It comes down to the investment. And so that's the biggest challenge right now, is getting the right equipment for scaling these products.
And when you think of looking on a more macro scale of those goals, those sustainability goals towards net zero, what do you think are some of those roadblocks on a macro scale for Canada's path to net zero?
I think one of the biggest challenges is how we define waste. And waste right now is destined for landfill. So if we look at the existing infrastructure that's available, it's outdated. And that goes to the material recovery facilities, that goes to the existing infrastructure that's available, because they are sorting those materials for the commodity markets. They need a return on investment. And so the commodity market oftentimes funds those businesses. So what I see is we're impacted by the materials that are acceptable through those programs. We see different programs that have rebates associated with it, where this material, it might be the exact same, but if it's not part of this rebate program, it's not accepted. The only other option is sending it to landfill. So what we like to do is we look at waste as a resource. How can we just find the right application for this material to divert it from landfill?
Well, it sounds like it's one of those things you learn when you're a kid. It's reduce, reuse, recycle. So re-waste is quite literally redefining what waste is.
It is certainly redefining. I don't think it's anything revolutionary in terms of recycling, but I think what we're doing is making it more accessible. We're making recycling more accessible for businesses. Right now, there's a lot of focus on municipal recycling programs, and that's supported by the extended producer responsibility policy. So the federal government is implementing these policies to engage producers to fund the recycling programs. But if we look at municipalities, the amount of waste that they generate, it's nominal compared to what businesses generate. And businesses don't have the same opportunity to recycle their packaging. So we focus on businesses and diverting their materials.
Interesting. Now I want to focus a little bit on opportunities. So as you work towards creating a more circular economy, what are some of the opportunities that you've encountered in scaling these innovations?
I think the opportunities that we've seen is how businesses can use this material within their operation. So when we meet with businesses, we come with a few different options, but the goal is always to try to create that circular economy within businesses. And so they'll help us understand what they're buying, what they're importing, what their procurement process looks like, so that we can show them that, look, we can actually injection mold right beside your facility. And we can produce this widget. So I think the opportunities that we have seen have been from the businesses that we work with in terms of centralizing their procurement so that they don't have to go overseas have those increased GHGs associated with it, especially when decarbonization is right along their ESG goals.
And how exactly are you engaging with these businesses? Is it a one-on-one conversation? Is it a group situation, or is it a simple survey?
Such a good question. We get approached by a lot of businesses. I'd say that's our main leads, is we get approached. And then once we're approached by these businesses, they'll often refer us to other businesses that they work with. So we don't do a very good job in marketing and getting out there, but thankfully we're able to develop innovative solutions that work for these businesses, and then they can refer us.
The fact that even these businesses are coming to you tells you that there is a need out there for this kind of solution. What kind of businesses are approaching you? Is it limited to kind of one sector, industry, or is it kind of a branched out kind of?
It's diverse. So we've had the opportunity to work with some of the largest distributors in the world, some of the largest coffee companies in the world, some of the fast furniture companies. And one thing is common is their business relies on packaging. And it can be rigid plastics, it could be films, but with the existing infrastructure, there's no options. So when we overlay that with the carbon impact and how we can show how recycling through re-waste, they can achieve their net zero, their decarbonization strategy, it's a game changer for them.
What role does AI and machine learning play in accelerating the shift, contributing to both economic growth and environmental sustainability?
Yeah, so AI has been a fun one to play with. And I use the example from like ChatGPT for the general public. It really allows the general public to speed up the smallest of tasks, like writing an email. And so when we look at how re-waste started in the garage, we were scraping data off every single piece of plastic that we collected. We would manually enter that into a spreadsheet. And so we've done tests now where we put plastic under a conveyor, there's photo recognition, there's cameras on there, and it's pulling that data off. And so when we meet with businesses, nobody really understands the data associated with plastics. Nobody understands if there's a pocket of a certain type of plastic in this region and this region might need X amount of plastic. So from our perspective, when we look at the economics of it, if we are able to work with multinationals, if we're able to work with material recovery facilities and integrate into their cameras, well, now we can pull out so much more data and make better decisions in getting this recycled content back into products. And it's not for all types of products, it's finding that right application.
And with organizations like the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, one of 3 AI centers in Canada, how does that influence the trajectory of your business moving forward to have ecosystem players like that?
Yeah, I think that, so we talked to Amy when we were first starting. So when we have that level of support from a program like Amy, we're able to first validate the concept that with their knowledge of artificial intelligence, we can see a bigger impact, that it doesn't just relate to re-waste and these common trends, because they work with a lot of different businesses, so they can show how it'll impact the wider masses, more business, more municipalities than just re-waste.
Kind of an open-ended question. What does success look like to re-waste in 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead?
It's a really good question. I think what success looks like in 5, 10, 20 years for re-waste is being able to implement our programs with multinationals at a national level. When I think of an impact, I think about quantity of material that has been diverted from landfill. And if we're able to do that across Canada, across the US, and even globally with some of these multinationals, that's how I would define success for re-waste.
How do you envision the future of waste value impacting global industries? And how can companies in the Edmonton region lead that transformation?
So waste value, that's a good one. I can see once the definition of waste is more widely adopted to a valuable resource, I could see landfills being mined for the resources that are in there. Waste value from a global level, I think once we start to see the transition from waste to resource, we'll start to see more widely adopted programs. I think Heidelberg's doing a great job in terms of their investment into the alternative fuels. And now we're able to see what it looks like on a smaller level like Re-Waste, being able to work with one of these massive companies like Heidelberg. There's some really big players in the Edmonton region where it might start off as an R&D project because it might be a smaller technology that's at its infancy. But by being able to get at your technology or your solution exposed to some of these bigger companies, they're going to be able to show that R&D has been done, there's validation, there's something here, and now they're going to be able to scale it along with your individual efforts.
Would you be able to tell me about some of the technology that you're using?
Yeah, so we're using wastestream.ai. So this is a joint venture that we have with a technology company. And so specifically what that focuses on is the track and trace of materials. So when we look at reporting or verified reporting or carbon calculations, we see that there's missing information. And what we want to do is we want to focus on the whole track and trace journey of that material. So materials might start in Eastern Canada and they'll be shipped to Edmonton, for example. So that has GHGs associated with it. And in our reporting, we want to make sure that the whole life cycle is reported so that our clients actually get a really good projection of that carbon impact. Not just we've received this material and now we've embodied X amount just based on a ratio. So it's very important for us to, and our clients, to be able to show the whole track and trace, the whole journey of this material, that it's come from one location, Re-Waste has processed it, and now it's been used in different products or it's gone to alternative fuels.
That's fascinating.
Each one will have a different impact in terms of a carbon calculation.
Right. Interesting. Thank you so much, Corey, for joining us today at the Edmonton Global Podcast booth. It was so nice to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode of Decarbonizing Today to continue exploring how decarbonizing tomorrow starts today in the Edmonton metro region.